Good morning. Have you ever wondered what truly sets great leaders apart from the rest? What makes some people inspire action and loyalty while others struggle just to get a nod or a simple okay from their team? Why do some leaders have followers who are passionate and driven, while others only see compliance and silence? What is the secret behind the influence that moves mountains, changes communities, and transforms lives? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, then you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to give you the answer, the key principles that great leaders use to inspire action in others. These aren't just ideas, these are timeless truths rooted in character, purpose, and faith. Whether you're leading a company, a family, a church, or even just yourself, understanding these truths will change the way you lead forever. Many people think leadership is about authority or power, but real leadership is about influence. It's about lighting a fire in others, not just ordering them around. It's about building a culture where people want to follow because they believe in the vision and the person leading them. And most importantly, it's about having a clear purpose that doesn't waver with popularity or circumstance. So, if you're ready to learn how to lead with impact and inspire action that lasts, stay tuned. I'm about to reveal 8 powerful keys that will help you step into the kind of leadership that moves hearts, changes minds, and builds legacies. If you find this message valuable, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with others who need to hear this today. Let's grow together as leaders who inspire and transform. Leadership is not about being in front of people. It's about seeing ahead of people. Great leaders don't just react to the present. They respond to a future that only God has revealed. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." The Hebrew word for vision here is chazon, which means divine revelation, prophetic insight, seeing what God sees. Every truly impactful leader in Scripture began with a vision from God. Noah built an ark because he saw rain before there were clouds. Abraham left his country because he saw a nation inside a barren womb. Joseph endured prison because he saw a throne in a dream. Moses faced Pharaoh because he saw a land flowing with milk and honey. Vision gives pain purpose. Vision turns confusion into direction. When a leader carries a God-given vision, people are drawn not to the leader's personality, but to the future they see in their eyes. Many today are trying to lead movements, families, churches, and companies with no clear vision. This is why there is chaos, frustration, and burnout. When people don't see the why, they lose the will. When followers don't see purpose, they settle for survival. A leader without vision creates motion without meaning. A real vision is never selfish. God never gives a vision for personal gain. It is always connected to the transformation of others. If your dream only benefits your bank account or your reputation, it is ambition, not vision. God-given vision blesses generations. It brings justice, healing, order, and restoration. Leadership starts when you kneel. Until you seek God for his intention, you will keep inventing plans he never authored. Moses was a prince in Egypt, but he didn't start leading until he stood before a burning bush. David was anointed king while he was still a shepherd, because God saw in him the heart of a ruler. Vision is not guessing the future. It's receiving revelation about your assignment. This is why prayer is non-negotiable for any leader. You can't lead others to God's promise if you've never heard from God yourself. People are tired of motivational slogans. They are hungry for direction rooted in divine truth. Real vision produces alignment. It brings clarity. People begin to prioritize differently. Resources begin to find you. Helpers emerge. Resistance appears too. But even that confirms the value of your vision. Because a God-given vision will always attract both opposition and provision. If you want to inspire action, don't start with strategy. Start with vision. Ask God to show you what he sees. Ask him to break your heart for what breaks his. Ask him to open your spiritual eyes until your calling becomes clearer than your fears. Leadership has never been about titles. It's about influence. True influence flows from trust, not control. Power can be imposed. Influence must be earned. A person can be in charge and have no influence, and another can have no title but change lives wherever they go. Jesus never held political office, never commanded armies, and never published a book. Yet he remains the most influential person in history. Why? Because he led through influence, not intimidation. His words, his life, and his love shaped hearts, not just behaviors. Influence is invisible, but its effects are undeniable. When someone has influence, they shift atmospheres. Their presence makes others think, feel, and move differently. You don't need a platform to influence people. You just need purpose and consistency. Power may get compliance, but influence earns commitment. Leaders who depend on power constantly have to remind people of their authority. Leaders who walk in influence inspire others to act even when they're not watching. That's the difference between managing people and mobilizing them. Influence begins with credibility. People don't follow titles, they follow authenticity. If your life doesn't match your message, your influence will fade. Integrity is the foundation of influence. When people know they can trust you, they will let you lead them. Look at Daniel. He was a captive in Babylon with no earthly power. Yet he influenced kings, governments, and entire empires because of his character. He wasn't trying to impress. He lived by conviction. That's what influence does. It shapes policy without shouting, shifts hearts without force. A recent leadership study by Harvard Business Review found that the most effective leaders scored highest in emotional intelligence, not in technical skills or commanding presence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions while recognizing and influencing the emotions of others. It's empathy, it's restraint, it's timing. True influence listens before it speaks. It sees people, not just positions. It builds bridges instead of walls. If people feel heard by you, they will trust you to guide them. That's why influence flows best through relationships. You can't inspire people you don't understand. Consider the story of Mother Teresa. She had no military, no wealth, no media machine, yet her influence shook nations. Presidents, kings, and CEOs listened when she spoke. Because her life was a message. She embodied compassion. She led through love, and the world followed her heart. Influence is also transferable. When you influence others, they begin to influence others. It multiplies. That's the power of mentorship. You invest in one person, and that one person touches 100 lives. Influence becomes a legacy. If you are a teacher, coach, parent, pastor, or entrepreneur, your influence is shaping destinies right now. You may not see the full result yet, but seeds are being planted with every word you speak and every decision you make. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need a crowd to make an impact. Walk in integrity, speak with conviction, live with purpose, and your influence will go further than your power ever could. Great leaders are not defined by how well they diagnose problems, but by how clearly they speak to potential. Anyone can point out what's wrong, criticism is easy, and complaints are common, but leadership rooted in divine wisdom sees beyond dysfunction into destiny. Leaders who inspire action are those who speak to what could be rather than what currently is. When Jesus first met Simon, he didn't call him by his flaws. He didn't remind him that he was impulsive or unstable. He looked him in the eye and called him Peter, meaning rock, Jesus named him not based on what he was, but based on what he would become. That moment changed everything. Jesus unlocked Peter's future by speaking to his hidden identity. People rise or fall to the level of the words spoken over them. This is especially true for those under your leadership: children, employees, students, church members. If all they hear is correction, they will live cautiously, but when they hear vision and belief, they begin to grow into it. A struggling student doesn't need to be reminded of low grades. They need someone to say, "I see something special in you." A team member who made a mistake doesn't need a lecture as much as they need to hear, "You're better than this. Let's move forward." Words are containers of power. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." Leadership is a mirror. The way a leader sees people shapes how people see themselves. When you speak only to problems, you reinforce limitations. When you speak to potential, you activate possibility. True leaders are not reactive, they're prophetic. They don't just describe the moment, they declare the future. Joseph's life was a mess of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, but God's vision for him never changed. The leader in Joseph was buried under injustice and pain, yet at the right time it emerged. Pharaoh saw it and placed him second in command. Great leaders are like that. They see royalty inside rejection, purpose inside pain, and greatness buried in ordinary moments. In a study conducted by Stanford University, students who received encouragement based on their potential, "I'm giving you this feedback because I believe in your ability to grow," showed over 40% more improvement than those who received general feedback. Belief creates breakthrough. Leadership is a sacred trust. When God places people under your influence, he expects you to treat them as image bearers of potential, not just problems to fix. Correction is necessary, but it must be laced with hope. Accountability without affirmation creates fear. But when correction is paired with vision, people are not only guided, they are empowered. Great leaders raise people up with their words. They speak life where there has been silence. They speak hope where there has been despair. They speak future where others see failure. And that's what inspires real action. The truest mark of leadership is not how many people serve you, but how many people you serve. Jesus, the greatest leader who ever lived, modeled this with stunning clarity. John 13 paints the picture. The Son of God wraps a towel around his waist, kneels, and begins to wash the feet of his disciples. Not after his resurrection, not during a victory parade. He does this the night before his betrayal. This single act shatters every worldly idea of leadership. The one with all power serves the powerless. The one who created the dust kneels to wipe it off the feet of men. This is the essence of kingdom leadership. Service without ego. Leadership by domination builds fear. Leadership by service builds loyalty, trust, and legacy. When people know you're willing to get your hands dirty for their benefit, they follow you with their heart, not just their hands. There's a story of a CEO who, during a factory shutdown, disguised himself and worked among his employees. He cleaned, lifted, and served without recognition. When the plant reopened, morale and performance were at an all-time high. His leadership wasn't in what he said, it was in what he did. Serving others dismantles pride. It reminds a leader that influence is not ownership. People don't exist to carry your vision. Leaders exist to empower people into theirs. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "The greatest among you must be your servant." Matthew 23:11. In the kingdom, greatness flows from humility. Service does not mean weakness. It is strength under control. It is choosing love over position, people over platforms. Servant leaders understand that leadership is stewardship. It is temporary authority used to create permanent impact. This principle works across all spheres. In business, companies with servant leader cultures report higher employee engagement, lower turnover, and stronger brand loyalty. In homes, parents who serve rather than dictate raise children who are secure and respectful. In churches, leaders who shepherd rather than control cultivate spiritual growth and community. Leadership by service also creates proximity. It allows you to see what others feel. When Jesus washed his disciples' feet, he didn't just clean them, he connected with them. He knew who would betray him, yet he served them anyway. That kind of leadership requires heart. It requires maturity. It requires the understanding that your mission is more important than your pride. Leadership divorced from service becomes tyranny. It produces followers out of fear, not faith. But when people feel your heart before they hear your instruction, they trust your voice. And trust is the soil where transformation takes root. Think of the people who have most changed your life. Were they the loudest, most powerful, or most impressive? Or were they the ones who showed up, stayed consistent, and served you when it wasn't convenient? That's the kind of leader people remember. That's the kind of leader heaven endorses. When leaders serve, something supernatural happens. People feel seen, they feel safe, they feel significant, and from that place, they don't just work harder, they live better. They give more, they grow, they change. Great leadership is never above service. It is defined by it. Great leadership goes beyond setting goals. It creates environments where growth becomes inevitable. Goals focus on what needs to be done. Culture shapes how things are done. While goals can be written in a document, culture is written in the hearts of people. It's not what a leader says once that defines culture. It's what they do consistently. In Genesis, God didn't just create man. He created Eden first. The garden was not just a place. It was an atmosphere. God established the environment before he placed purpose inside it. That's divine order. Great leaders understand this. They don't just demand results. They shape environments that nurture results. A culture of honor creates loyalty. A culture of fear produces silence. A culture of excellence pushes people to rise. A culture of laziness tolerates mediocrity. What leaders permit, they promote. Culture is not what you preach, it's what you allow. In organizations, culture is often invisible but always felt. Walk into a room where creativity is celebrated and ideas will flourish. Walk into a place where criticism outweighs encouragement and progress stalls. Great leaders are architects of atmosphere. They monitor tone, energy, values, and behaviors just as closely as they do budgets and timelines. Culture is caught, not just taught. People mirror the behavior of their leaders. If a leader gossips, others will too. If a leader cuts corners, shortcuts become normal. If a leader keeps their word, trust becomes the standard. The leader sets the thermostat, everyone else adjusts accordingly. In Joshua 24, Joshua didn't just issue commands. He set culture by declaring, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." He made it personal. That declaration didn't just guide behavior, it shaped legacy. Great leaders understand that culture creation begins with example, not enforcement. In business, research from Deloitte shows that companies with strong, positive cultures experience 4x higher revenue growth. People are not just motivated by money, they are driven by meaning. They want to belong to something that makes them better. In families, culture is not determined by the rules written on a wall, but by the love, discipline, and consistency children experience daily. A father can set a rule, no shouting in this house. But if he yells in frustration every day, that rule loses power. Children copy tone more than text. Great leaders create cultures where people are free to fail forward, speak truth, share ideas, and correct wrongs. They invite feedback, not flattery. They welcome excellence without shaming effort. They celebrate wins, but they also build resilience in losses. Creating culture requires intentionality. It means shaping onboarding conversations, clarifying core values, addressing toxic behavior quickly, and rewarding what aligns with the vision. Over time, the right culture becomes self-sustaining. It doesn't need reminders because it's become identity. Leaders who focus only on goals may get short-term compliance. Leaders who build culture establish generational influence. Culture becomes the riverbed through which vision flows. The difference between average leadership and spiritual leadership is the fuel behind the decisions. Fear focuses on consequences. Faith focuses on obedience. Fear asks, what if it fails? Faith declares, God is with us. Leaders who inspire action must be rooted in faith, not in what they see, but in what they believe God has said. In Numbers 13, 12 spies were sent to assess the promised land. All of them saw the same land, the same giants, the same walls, but only 2, Joshua and Caleb, returned with a report of faith. 10 saw impossibility, 2 saw victory. What separated them wasn't sight, it was spirit. Leaders who lead by faith interpret facts through the lens of God's promises. Faith leadership is not about recklessness. It's not blind optimism. It's spiritual discernment that overrides fear with confidence in God's word. Hebrews 11:1 defines faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Leaders walk with clarity even when conditions are cloudy, because they're led by divine instruction, not human calculation. Fear is contagious. When leaders act out of fear, it multiplies anxiety, hesitancy, and defensiveness among followers. People begin to second, guess, shrink back, and play small, but faith is just as contagious. When leaders speak with courage, act with boldness, and model trust in God, it gives permission for others to rise as well. David didn't fight Goliath because the odds made sense. He fought him because his faith made God bigger than the threat. Saul, a king with armor, was paralyzed by fear. David, a shepherd with a slingshot, was propelled by faith. Great leaders confront giants not because they have better weapons, but because they have deeper trust. In real life, leading by faith might mean investing resources before seeing the return. It might mean standing for righteousness when others compromise. It might mean launching a vision when no one else believes in it yet. Every great move of God began with a leader who trusted him more than they feared man. Nehemiah heard the walls of Jerusalem were in ruins. He didn't have a construction company, military backing, or political support. But he had faith. He prayed, planned, and moved. His faith attracted favor from a king. His boldness sparked unity among the people. Fear would have frozen him. Faith mobilized him. Even in crisis, faith must guide decisions. A fearful leader will cut corners, lie to save face, or avoid confrontation. But a faith-filled leader will anchor themselves in truth, knowing God honors those who walk uprightly. Psalm 112:7 says, "He will have no fear of bad news. His heart is steadfast, trusting in the Lord." Faith in leadership doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means fear doesn't get the final say. It means praying when others panic. It means holding the vision when the money runs low. It means declaring the promise even when the storm is raging. Faith brings direction when data fails. It unlocks creativity in tight spaces. It makes leaders see opportunities others call obstacles. It dares to walk on water, not because the water is solid, but because Jesus said, "Come." True leadership doesn't settle for obedience without enthusiasm. Great leaders stir passion in people's hearts. They ignite something deeper than duty. They activate fire. Passion produces energy, ownership, and resilience, qualities that compliance alone can never sustain. Moses didn't just tell Israel what to do. He gave them a vision of who they were. He reminded them they were a chosen nation, not just slaves freed from Egypt. When people see themselves through the eyes of vision, their actions are no longer mechanical. They become intentional. Compliance happens when people are told what to do. Passion emerges when they understand why it matters. Leaders who inspire passion don't just hand out instructions. They translate vision into meaning. They connect a person's task to their significance. When someone sees that their work builds more than a paycheck, that it builds lives, legacies, and destinies, they engage with fire in their soul. A leader who only demands results will produce followers who do the bare minimum. But when a leader shares the why, people go beyond what's required. They bring creativity, endurance, and heart. Passionate people wake up early, stay late, and carry the mission even when no one is watching. Jesus didn't recruit the disciples with salaries or safety. He offered them a cause bigger than themselves. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He took men with ordinary jobs and gave them extraordinary purpose. That passion turned fishermen into world changers. It wasn't force, it was fire. One study from Harvard Business Review found that employees who describe themselves as passionate about their work are 125% more productive than their peers. Passion drives excellence. It fuels innovation. It transforms good teams into great ones. Leaders ignite passion by telling stories, casting vision, and showing people how their individual role contributes to the bigger picture. In a hospital, a janitor once said, "I'm not just cleaning floors, I'm helping save lives." That's what happens when passion is awakened, perspective shifts. It also matters in families. A father who says, "Because I said so," might get obedience. But a father who explains, "I'm guiding you because your future matters to me," will build trust and ignite purpose. Children fueled by passion don't just follow rules, they begin to lead themselves. Passion is also sustained by presence. Leaders who are emotionally and spiritually present inspire others to care. People don't just remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. A passionate leader walks with people, not just ahead of them. Passion does more than increase performance. It creates legacy. Those who are led with passion become passionate leaders themselves. It multiplies. A teacher who loves teaching will produce students who love learning. A pastor who preaches with fire will raise a congregation that prays with hunger. Passion is transferable. Great leaders ask more than "What are you doing?" They ask, "Why are you doing it, and how can I help you burn for it again?" They don't just manage tasks, they awaken hearts. Leaders who chase applause will eventually compromise their assignment. Great leadership is anchored in purpose. It is unshakable, even when misunderstood. Leaders who inspire action don't shift with the opinions of the crowd. They stand firm in the convictions of their calling. Jesus had thousands cheering him on Sunday and the same voices shouting, "Crucify him," by Friday. If his identity had been tied to their praise, his mission would have died with their disappointment. Purpose is what kept him focused. Leaders who inspire action must live from internal alignment, not external approval. Popularity is unstable. It rises and falls with trends, moods, and opinions. One day you're celebrated, the next day you're criticized. Purpose is eternal. It's rooted in divine instruction. It doesn't bow to the pressure of culture. It doesn't flinch in the face of rejection. The prophet Jeremiah is a clear example. God called him to speak unpopular truth to a nation that didn't want to listen. He was mocked, beaten, and isolated, but he stayed on assignment. He once said, "His word was in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones." That's what happens when purpose drives you. It won't let you quit. When leaders prioritize popularity, they often dilute their message, soften their values, and lose their way. But when purpose is the anchor, they can lead through storms, withstand criticism, and stay faithful even when results are not immediate. In leadership, there will be moments where the right thing is not the popular thing. A purpose-driven leader will still choose what is right. Nehemiah faced opposition and mockery while rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Critics tried to distract and intimidate him, but he replied, "I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." That's the voice of purpose. It protects your focus. In real life, a coach may face pressure from parents to favor certain players, but if anchored in purpose, they'll prioritize development and discipline. A business owner might lose clients by refusing to compromise ethics, but they gain integrity. A pastor might offend some by preaching truth, but truth is what sets people free, not flattery. Anchored leaders are consistent. They are the same in private as they are in public. They make decisions based on values, not vanity. Their leadership doesn't bend with every opinion poll or social media comment. They don't lead to be liked. They lead to be effective. Popularity brings moments of applause. Purpose brings eternal impact. When you live for applause, you become addicted to validation. But when you live for purpose, you are free to lead boldly, even when it's lonely. Purpose-driven leadership is deeply spiritual. It requires time in prayer, clarity in calling, and strength to walk alone if necessary. God never called leaders to be famous. He called them to be faithful. Faithfulness is what heaven rewards. Not crowds, not likes, not claps, but quiet, steady, courageous obedience. God is calling a new generation of leaders, those who won't lead from fear, fame, or fortune, but from faith, vision, and service. The world doesn't need more celebrities. It needs leaders who listen to heaven, love people, and live with integrity. If you want to inspire action, don't look around. Look within and look up. Because when God births a vision in your heart and you dare to obey, you won't just lead, you'll transform lives.